Energy transfer. Energy is transferred throughout food webs and food systems. The easiest way to visualize energy transfer is through an energy pyramid. The energy pyramid can have multiple levels. The first is the producers. The producers get energy from the sun and turn it into glucose, which is usable by everybody else. So they have 100% of the total energy. Of that 100% total energy, the primary consumers, I'll do P consumers, con for short, the primary consumers get only 10% of the total energy. So they only have 10% of that. The next one is the secondary consumers. These consumers eat the primary consumers and get only 1% of the total energy available. Then on top is tertiary consumers. They only get 0.1%. That's why a tertiary consumer has to eat much more than a primary consumer, because they're generally larger and more adept. Another way to see the energy transfer through an ecosystem is a simple math problem. You take whatever percentage of energy one class has. So say we want to do primary consumers. So the primary consumers, they have 15% of the energy. That means that the secondary consumer, because we can do the 10% rule, will only have 1.5% of the total energy. Or if you want to go backwards, you can go to the producer, who would have 150%, because this is 10% of that. The next way to visualize energy transfers, along with the levels of organization, is through a food web. So the food web always starts with a producer. So in our case, it'll be grass. So the grass is eaten by rabbit, and grasshoppers. So this is your producer. This is your primary consumer. This is also a primary consumer. So these have 100% of the energy. These have 10% of the energy. Next is the secondary consumers. So say a wasp eats the grasshopper. This makes it a secondary consumer, giving it 1% of the total energy. The rabbit is eaten by the hawk. And since nothing eats the hawk, this is actually the tertiary consumer. So in this case, following the 10% rule of this person having 10%, the tertiary consumer in this circumstance would actually have 1% of the energy, not 0.1 like it usually would with secondary consumers. It varies by the different levels you have. So in this one, the wasp is then eaten by a bird, whatever bird. This bird would be another tertiary consumer, because it's the top consumer, meaning this one would only have 0.1%. So this is why in an ecosystem, if the wasp was taken out, the bird would have to rely on much more prey to get its 0.1% of the total energy. unlike the grasshopper that has a much more energy available to it. Overall energy transfer can be measured with math, food pyramids, food webs, and your eyes. You can see energy transfer with your eyes because when you look at a producer, it's usually photosynthetic, meaning it takes energy from the sun to produce the beginning amount of energy, which is 100%, of course. But then if you look at, say, a tertiary consumer, for this example, let's use a human. We're a human. We might not get this exact amount, but say, blah, 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 bunch of organisms. We're much more adept and multicellular. Much more adept and multicellular than a basic producer. So you could see with your own eyes that we get less energy and are higher up on the food chain and food web.